Hi, this is TechCat Todd, and I wanted to spend a few minutes introducing you to how you can connect to a remote desktop. So a remote desktop is a computer running somewhere else. You'll use your computer or device. It can be done on a phone and a tablet and a Mac. This is the Windows 10 version, so maybe get another version if that's not where you are. Or this is kind of the Windows version, if you will. But a remote desktop there's a computer running somewhere else, and you use the network or an internet to open it up, and you'll have an application running on call this the client, the computer where you are. This is like my laptop right here, but you have access, and it's like you're using that computer. You're logged in there. Okay, so I'm going to just start kind of with basics and then get into maybe some of the shortcuts and that kind of thing. But what you'll need to connect to a remote desktop is the DNS name. DNS is short for Domain Name System Name. It kind of looks like a URL or a website, but it isn't. So we'll be connecting in this example to vm-1.techcats.solutions. That may not be where you connect. Look, and later we'll talk about, well, how do I find my connection authority? You'll need a login ID. Probably your instructor, your hosting administrator gives you that, or if you have a TechCat subscription, I'll show you how you get it from your TechCat subscription, and then you'll have a password that you've probably changed and set up. Okay? Great. So let's kind of, before I say that, sometimes you'll see remote desktop DNS names with a colon and a port number, or even URLs for that. What this does is go to this particular resource, but use this particular port. Port 3389 is default for remote desktop, and I know in TechCat Solutions that's what we'll use for remote desktop, but sometimes you're going after a different port, so if somehow somebody says, oh, use this, and it's got a different, something like there, then use that port number. But we don't need to put a port number on for TechCats. If we needed a port, it would be 3389. But okay, so let me just kind of show you how this goes going to here. So on a Windows computer, Windows 10, it's real similar in Windows 8 and Windows 7. Click the Start button, and built into, I started typing remote down here. Built into Windows is a desktop app for remote desktop connection. Now there are apps for remote desktop that you can get in the App Store. They don't work very well on Windows 10, I found, so I would stay away from those. You don't need to download and install a remote desktop app on a Windows 10 computer. Use the Remote Desktop Connection desktop app that's built in. So if I click that, it gets started. And what the remote desktop first wants to know, notice that it's got a different thing, is the DNS name, the computer. So, what I'm calling DNS name, it wants the computer. I logged in with something different, but when we click connect here, it's going to give us a chance to change that. So I'm coming down, this isn't the login I want. So if I click more choices and use a different account, that'll allow me to put in what is the account that I'm looking for, the login ID, and click OK. After a little bit, you're going to get a warning, maybe 2 or 3. Just always click OK or yes. It's really saying that, okay, you're connecting to this thing. Yeah, I did talk to Microsoft about how to keep this warning from coming up, and they said, no, you really should show your users that warning so they understand that to me the message is wrong. It's just you're connecting to a resource. It's kind of like, it's on the internet. But don't worry about this. Just click yes. If you get something else, then click OK or something like that. And in this case, it just popped in. And notice now, my whole screen changed, and I have this thing called vm1.techcatsolutions at the top. Notice that disappears when I get off of it, and when I hover up there, it comes in. If you want to see that all the time, you can pin it. I'm going to window it just to kind of demonstrate that I've got a PC running here, and this is just an application that is looking at another computer, but this is its remote desktop connection, and this is if you bought a TechCat subscription or you have a TechCat subscription, this is the asset you get. What I was able to do was install the software you're going to need or might take advantage of on that, so you don't have to, or in the case of like a Mac where Visio and Project don't even work, you can get some access to it. All right, so kind of realize that this is an application. You can maximize it, you can minimize it. It's down on the taskbar. Okay, you can window it, but I usually like to keep it full screen, and then I'm not going to pin it. Just when I kind of hover off, have that go away. So while I'm in it, it's like I'm in a whole different computer. But I realize that my client is running at the time. Well, the next thing on my agenda is, well, I run applications just like I run applications anywhere. These happen. I'm going to do Word, for example. And so I'm going to go into a blank document, and this is my RDP demo, right? Like I'm answering something, and I can do File, and I'll do File Save. Now, when you're saving this document, realize that it's saving on this remote computer. So if I go to this PC, should have double-clicked, it's putting it in my Documents folder. Okay, so on this PC, just like on every PC, there's a Documents folder, just like there's a Desktop folder. So if you like seeing things on your desktop, I tend to not, but I'll do that. If I decide to put that in my desktop instead, then it will appear on my desktop, and I can work on it from there. So, part of the thing is, remember where you go. I don't like spaces, and I like short names, so I just kind of name this, but this is just plain old saving a file. If I kind of go look at my desktop, I see there's this RDP demo up there, okay? So it's just something that's on my desktop. Good, so maybe I am done, and I can do like this. Now, suppose I want a copy of this. So this is up in this remote desktop. When I close out of the remote desktop, I'll show you a little bit about how to do that in a little bit. The file isn't here on my computer, and maybe I need it to turn in or look at or something like that. Well, one thing you can do is, after you've created a file, I am coming and I'm finding it. Now, you can either find it if it's kind of on your desktop, do it like this, or use the file system. If you put it on your desktop, then you're going to need to go onto the C drive here, look in the users folder, find your particular folder. By the way, you might notice everybody who kind of has a subscription has a folder here, but we can't get to other folders other than our own. So don't worry, then people can look at yours. But now if I look at desktop, then here's really how the system thinks about that file. It's in this particular path, they call this, but it shows up on the screen too. But if I find the file, I can right-click and say copy. Then I can minimize my remote desktop. Now I'm going into the file system on my, that happens to be really a Surface, but think of the laptop. I'm going into the documents there, right-clicking and paste. It just transfers there. Then you have it if you needed a copy or something like that. This works in reverse. If I go copy, then wake up my remote desktop and paste, now I'm going to get it's going to overwrite, so I'll copy and replace. It's the same thing, but I could change the name, I've changed the name or something like that. So when you create a file, whether it's Project or Word or PowerPoint or any of these other applications, you can take them from the remote desktop and then put them into on your own computer. One of the reasons, or one of the things you might be asked to do, if you're, depending on your instructor. Now, I'm at Augusta University as an emeritus professor. What I did, and I'm in the remote desktop here, and you can log in to D2L while you're in the remote desktop, and actually you get a pretty good and fast internet connection. And so if you just needed to upload something, there's nothing to keep you from, I've got it, did what I was supposed to on the remote desktop, saved it in documents on the remote desktop, and I needed to get up Duo here, 732, 33. Log in. And, so there's nothing to keep you from then, all in the remote desktop, opening up a browser, looking for things, and then, maybe going to a class. Let's see, I'd need to demonstrate this. I need to view as student. I'm an instructor, so it looks a little different, but if I view as a student, then you can upload a file from the remote desktop. I don't think I have anything set up, but you can go into the course, and the thing is, you can always then upload the file just from, it's in here on the remote desktop. Another way you can do that is, if you're more comfortable, and now I have a copy on my own computer, then I could go to D2L, wherever you need to upload, and upload it from this is called the client, right? So it exists here. This remote desktop does have Internet Explorer. You'll find by the time you get there, Chrome and Firefox on the, there's Firefox and Chrome. If you prefer to use those. Can't use Edge on a Windows server. That's what this is. This happens to be a Windows server. But the idea is this has the applications that are set up just to run the right way, and if you give your instructor can maybe help you. So let me get back on my agenda, and I've done a quick demo about creating a file, saving it in the remote desktop. Looked a little bit about file locations in the remote desktop, so get used to that. When you save something, think about, so T. Schultz, or your login, has a documents folder, it's got a desktop folder, it's got a downloads folder, so pay attention to where you put it. Sometime to get to some of those old other folders, well, you can kind of use it, not downloads, desktop. You can kind of use these are called libraries, but they're just really mapping to something. But, just when you save something, just remember where you saved it. We talked about how to copy the file to the user computer and copy it back. And if you needed to upload it, like to a learning management system, well, you can log into the learning management system on the remote desktop, or you can log into the learning management system after you've copied a file on down. All right. Well, let me do something. I'm going to get back in this Word document, and I am making... Right, so I'm in the middle of something, and maybe I've got to go, or maybe my internet connection gives out. As long as you're, so kind of getting to, well, what do you do? How do you end a particular session? If I hit an X here, okay, and I'm sorry, not the X there. If I wake up the remote desktop thing, all I did was minimize this, so notice that Word is still going. But if I hit an X here, it's going to say, your remote session will be disconnected. This computer is going to stay on, and this file will stay open and be available for you. It'll be about an hour. Then I've got a policy that says, well, I'm going to close it and log you off. So if you're going to disconnect, make sure that you've maybe saved anything that you're sure you need. I could have saved this just before I go. But if I click OK, remote desktop is gone. Well, it's not. The computer's still running. It happens to be in San Antonio for VM1.TechCat Solutions. I've just disconnected from it. How do I get back? Same way I got there the first time. Do remote desktop connection, look for this. Notice it probably remembers your username, and there is a way even to remember your credentials. I'll show you that in a little bit. But if I just say connect, put in my, interesting. I seem to have gone into, so maybe double check that you maybe have to use a different account. I seem to want to log me in. This T. Schultz at Augusta Edu is the authority that I logged into my Surface in the first place, so it seemed to want to do that. So all I did was if I do this again, connect, I see this. That's not what I'm logging in as, so kind of pay attention to that. I wish it wouldn't kind of come in, but more choices, choose the, I don't see my T. Schultz on there, and so the brave new world of authentication. Everybody wants you to be theirs. I'll just click yes, kind of like usual, and this puts me back in my session. And if you do it within an hour, you're back in your session right where you were, and you can continue to make that update. Better if you save this in case you don't make it back in an hour. If you didn't save it, get out of it yet. You might have to recover your changes or something like that. Another way to do that disconnect is if you click the start button, hit the power thing, and disconnect. That does a disconnection too. Now let's suppose, and this is a little bit better hygiene, I believe, suppose I'm really done, so I've saved this and exited this. When I disconnect, that server still maintains some memory on my behalf, and some services are open, and this is a shared resource. Other users are using it at the same time. If you really are done for a while, I prefer, and I like to be sure that I sign off instead. So when I click here and do sign out, what that does is close the session entirely. If I had some applications open, it would close them, kind of like logging off, not shutting down. You're not shutting down, and to me that is kind of recommended when you're done. In an hour, the server's going to do it anyway. You free up in case somebody else wants to use the resources, and so that's just to me a better way to roll when you're sure you're done. If you're not sure, then just disconnect. You're in a hurry, just disconnect. The other nice thing about disconnecting is sometimes your internet connection will get a little flaky, and you'll be disconnected, but if you get back within an hour, reestablish your Wi-Fi or clean up the connection, whatever it is, then you'll still be able to kind of save and salvage what you're doing. Okay, so there are times when Wi-Fi fails or whatever. All right, let's talk about, what if I don't want to type in credentials every time? There is a way. If I do remote desktop, I don't like to do this, but you can. What I did was click Show Options, I think. Yeah, Show Options. And in Options, you can say, allow me to save credentials. And if we click and we do connect first. And now when we connect, got to do this more choices thing. It really is kind of stuck on. So all I did was reconnect. All right, now I'm going to quickly just disconnect. And did that save? It should have saved. I don't know if it really saved the. Okay, saved the credentials to be used on this computer. If I now click connect, what it did was it loaded up that thing that I saved. It saved that credential, and I didn't have to do anything. So, if you come in once and you've done, what I showed you, then you can come in the next time. And notice it says, save credentials we used to connect to this computer. You can edit or delete these credentials. If you got them right, just click connect and you'll pop on in. One of the reasons I don't like to do it is sometimes I'm connecting to different computers with different logins. You may not need to do this. This is maybe your only remote desktop connection, and saving them is good. If you need to connect to something else, then you'll want to edit or delete the credentials to go. But notice that then, once again, the connect, you'll have to do this. But if you don't want to do this, you can click this box here. Don't ask me again for quick connections to this computer. I don't like to do that personally, and I'm not going to get back in. But I don't like to do it personally because then it won't pop up when I'm demoing, and if it doesn't pop up when it's demoing, then students see it and they kind of get worried. So I like it to have it pop up. But you could click that, and then pretty much you'll just zoom right in, and you won't need to enter your credential. Okay, suppose you have a TechCat subscription. That's all great, but I need this stuff, right? So if you have a TechCat subscription, if you go to TechCatSolutions/access and put in the email that you establish your subscription with, okay, and I clicked an email activation, so an email from, and make sure you're you look maybe in your junk mail, because this is going to come from tech support at TechCat Solutions over an email, if everything is working right. And here it is. And basically what this has is a link that has your personal activation code in. This kind of has like your login stuff, so can't keep it a little secret, but if you click on that, come on, if you click on that, why aren't you doing it? There it is. It kind of comes back into Access, but it shows you then your credentials, right? The name of your remote DNS, that's where we would go into here. Sometimes it maybe helps. I was emphasizing that maybe you need 3389. Some people's remote clients seem to need that. Sometimes it does turn out that computer name or the domain might need to come in front since it's a computer name. And if you don't know your password yet, because you just got your password set up, you can use the password, kind of reset it. Type what you want for your password in, click reset the RDP password. And if it all works well, it trundles a little bit, but the password's updated. You'll get an email indicating that it's, I showed my password now, I better change it. Before it gets, so kind of all this being changed before you see the next thing. And notice you will get an email from tech support at TechCat Solutions, just saying, an email, the password's been updated. But remember that it does show it in plain text, and that's really for your convenience. Maybe by the time you use it, I'll change that. I debated whether to hide it, put it in twice. I left it to put it in once and let you see it. But that's how then, if you just got a subscription or you forgot your remote desktop password, how you can go about establishing it. All right, and the shortcut. When you have a TechCat Solutions thing here, there is a way. I'm going to click, there's this download RDP connection, and if you open this, what that does is it knows it's remote desktop, so it just goes through the connection. Interesting. It doesn't kind of keep it, so that's not as useful anymore. I've kind of got this whole thing tied to my pin, so it really just starts a remote desktop connection, but you're going to have to come in and kind of do that change account. It's kind of stuck on that, putting in the pin that my Windows thing is. All right, couple of troubleshooting things then, just to finish up. Sometimes when you try to connect to remote desktop, you get something that looks like... Okay, well, you might this, but if you get, sometimes maybe it finds the server, but the server isn't operating or something like that. One thing you ought to do, and this is something that might be on your end, since we use port 3389, check that your particular, and this is on your end, like your router or the internet setup where you are, has 3389 open. If you visit http://portquiz.net 3389, if you reach this page on port 3389, then you know that port is open. So if you're having a problem, it isn't because of the port. If you get something like that port couldn't be reached, that means that for output, that port is blocked. I know on our Augusta University campus, guest access to Wi-Fi has blocked port 3389. You can't use the guest Wi-Fi to do remote access. You have to use the secure Wi-Fi. I've maybe had one other person who at work, they block it. Maybe one person at home, their dad set up the router to block it. But you'll need to go to a Starbucks, it'll work, or get that open. If your work doesn't want you to do it, then I can't do anything about that. But if you're not making a connection, one thing to check is PortQuiz. And the other thing to double check is make sure, and I did this a couple of times, you just maybe use another account. So when I do remote, it's kind of really, and this is, I've just changed the way I do this, even though it says, oh, I'm going to use this username, T. Schultz. Actually, that one does work. If I go in plain without that, it's really trying to use, this is my Windows 10 login, and what you do if you look for more choices, use a different account, and then put in your actual account, you'll be fine, okay? And if you save it, you'll also be fine and not have to remember it, okay? So that's just the basics of using remote desktop to get in. There's other videos and materials that show you how, okay, well, once I'm there, what do I do? And it's up to your instructor maybe exactly what it is that, your assignments are and that kind of thing. This is really just showing how to use the tool. And as always, if you get into any issues, I should have put that in the thing, if you visit TechCat Solutions Contact, fill out a form, let me know, you can do other ways, and maybe I can give you some help if you're having some issues. All right, well, good luck. Enjoy this. This is really a productive and helpful utility, I'm convinced, and how well it works. But good luck in using it. Take